Have you ever wondered why some real estate agents perform at ultra high levels every single year? Welcome to the Unstoppable Agent Podcast with your host, Richard Fournier. Each week, we interview real estate agents from around the world who are constantly ranked in the top 1% of the real estate industry. My mission, share with you their best strategies so that you can create your own peak results as a real estate agent. It's time to become unstoppable.
Well, welcome back to this episode of the Unstoppable Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Fournier, and I'm so excited to have with us a return guest, not to this podcast. He was on our original podcast, the Peak Results Academy, but he had such great reviews. His podcast had a very high level number of downloads. We've had a lot of people comment around some of the content you gave us, Nirsh. So we're excited to have you back today, Nirsh. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We had great synergy when we were on the last time, and I appreciate that. You know, people still want to talk to me, or you still want to talk to me.
No, so just kind of give some kind of background on you, Nirsh. So you're currently with Remax. You're located out of Remax West, I believe, in Vaughan.
Yeah, Remax West in Vaughan. Remax West opened up a sister company.
Yep.
With the manager here is partners with Frank Colatasti, owns all the West. And so we're right at Weston and Major Mac. So it's called Remax West Experts. And it's growing, and it's fresh new environment. And I made the change in January, and it's been open for about a year now, but I made the change over here in January. It's actually about 3 minutes from my house.
Perfect.
So so for me, it's like I can get the kids real quick and stuff like that. And and I like a new, fun, fresh environment. And still plugging away.
That's fantastic to hear. So just for our out-of-country listeners, Vaughan is just north of Toronto here in Ontario. And it's a major community. It's one of the largest in Canada. And it's really part of the greater Toronto area for some of our out-of-country listeners. So Nirsh, let's get into it.
It's known as a city above Toronto.
A city above Toronto, exactly. And I'm just north of Vaughan. So
yeah,
but we're really excited to have you here. Listen, you've had this podcast is really geared around what creates an unstoppable agent. And you have, through your history, really shown yourself to be an unstoppable agent. You've been around for quite a long time. You performed at a very high level. I believe you hit diamond level last year in 2021 with Remax, and I believe that's over $1 million in gross commissions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you don't like to, and a lot of agents don't want to talk about the GCI thing, but it's very important because the majority of our listeners are real estate agents from around the world, and numbers show us performance, right? How many people have you actually served?
And thank you. And so like I did hit that last year. I also like to talk about units because, I do a lot of clients with pre-construction, but sales as well. And I'm about 60-40 listings to purchases. And then I got pre-construction clients. So with pre-construction sales last year as well, I did over 60 units. About 48 of them were like MLS sales, like listings and buys. And the rest were pre-construction through a partnership I have with one of my good buddies, a colleague at West. So it's also about because a lot of times too, when people are listening to the podcast, agents listening, oh, well, he works in the GTA, commissions are X amount of dollars. It's easy for him to hit that. It's actually not easy, but at the same time, do we get paid well? Yes. But at the same time, I like to also talk about units because units matter in our industry, and it should be discussed because it's not just, okay, yeah, I can hit 20 and make that with where commissions are. And, there's also obviously been commission compression over the last, couple of years when houses would sell in a week. So I just kind of wanted to interface that, but you gave me a very nice build up, and I appreciate, I'm not sure I'm deserving of all of that, but thank you.
Well, I see this podcast is around speaking truth, right? And there's a lot of people that I communicate with, they make a lot of excuses why they don't perform. And let's be honest, right? The GTA, Ontario, is the most competitive marketplace in the world for residential real estate, right? I think we're nearing 70,000 agents in the GTA on the Toronto Real Estate Board. That's not including, all the other boards in Ontario. And so the competition is absolutely fierce out there today for business. So whenever someone performs in the top 1% of the industry, it gets my attention. Other people want to hear from you because it does require something unique to perform at that level. Okay. And so when we look at, if we can just kind of regress a little bit into how you started in the business, just a few minutes of the start, some of the pain associated with that.
Yeah. So as of December this year, I'll have had my license for 10 years.
Nice.
This is my 9th year full time. And so I kind of got into it. It may sound arrogant, it may not, but I kind of got into it because I was getting married. We were selling our house, and I was like, I instructed the agent what to do, and I was like, he was very passive, and he was one of my neighbors, and I'm like, okay, let me have him sell the house, and I was going to sell it myself, but then my wife's like, you really want to sell your house yourself? We're in the middle of like renovating our house to sell, and where we were getting ready for a wedding, and I'm like, okay, fine. But I told the guy, I'm like, listen, you're going to have 2 open houses. You're going to hold offers. And holding offers wasn't a thing back in 2011. Right. And we're going to take offers on this day. And then basically, long story short, like half an hour before offer time, I was still working a regular job at the time. And half an hour before it was supposed to be offer time, or an hour before, I saw how many offers there were none. So my wife's like, you better decide what you're going to do if you get an offer and what price you're going to take. And at that time, I owned the house for 5 years because my wife and I bought a house together after that. So it was my house. So she was like, okay, you better decide what to do. And then so I'm like, well, I'm not coming home because I was doing inventory at work. So I'm like, I'm not coming home if there's no offers. What am I coming home for? Right. And this is when we still did presentations in person.
Right. I remember those.
Yeah. So I'm driving. She's like, come home. And I'm like, okay. So I started to drive home. And when I started to drive home, I got a text. And I remember I was on the 401. And the 401's a zoo. And it was like 6 o'clock. And I'm like, 6:30. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to drive home. And I got a ding. And I think I was in traffic. So I picked up my phone, which I shouldn't do. And it said, 1 offer registered. I was like, okay. So then I called or I had voicemail, and it said 1 offer registered. And I think there's a couple of more coming. By the time I got home at 7 o'clock or 7:15, there were 4 offers coming in. So I was like, I was vindicated at that point. And I listed at $499, and my agent wanted it to list at $475. He's like, okay, maybe we list at $485. I said, no, we're listing at $499. We're holding offers. So then the first offer came in, presentation, 2 agents rolled up in their Range Rovers, and they were arguing about who has a nicer Range Rover and which one's better. And I'm like, this is why I wanted to sell my house myself. And then the first offer was $505. And I'm like, I'm vindicated. I got multiple offers, and it's over asking. Then the next offer was $506, $508, and then one came in at $518. And I couldn't wipe the smile off my face with that. I'm like, how quickly can I sign? And so at that point, I'm like, you know what? I love doing this. And actually, I already was like following the industry at that point. So I'm like, I think I can do this. So then when we moved into the new house, I talked to my real estate agent. He was like, yeah, you can take courses and you can get your license. It's not that easy a business. And then when we had my daughter, I just felt like I was, we go down to one salary, and I felt I was sinking. So I was like, I need to provide for my family, and I don't want to work 15 hours a day for a corporation and not have an unlimited ceiling of how much money I can make and take care of my family. And so then basically I told my wife when my daughter was born, I want to get my license, and I want to I want to do this, I'll do it part-time first, and then I want to go full-time. Company offered me a package, to stay a year. They offered me a 6-month package. So I said, this is the best opportunity. I took it. And to being 100% truthful, I didn't tell my wife I had an option to stay, and because they were going to keep a few people, and the manager is my kid's godmother. Like, she's a very good friend. I've worked for her for years, and I didn't tell my wife, which obviously caused some problems because I told her later, and she's like, "You had a choice." I said, "Well, what would you have said to me?" She said, "I would have told you to stay." And I said, "But I was already unhappy at that point, and I wanted to make sure I could provide for my family." And so she's like, okay, here's the deal. You don't make, because I was making close to six figures at that point. She said, if you don't make that within the first year, you have to go back to your job.
Fair enough.
Well, fair enough. I said, okay, but that's not an option for me. So I hustled. First year, made 109,000. Didn't have to go back to that job.
Fantastic.
And 9 years later, 10 years, I guess, 9 years full-time later, we are where we are today. And I'm still in the industry, thank God, and still loving it.
That's fantastic. And when you look at, the style of business from, say, 9 years ago versus what we've just experienced, I mean, you really participated in a crazy, insane market over the last 9 years. And from multiple offers, 30, 40, 50 offers on listings, super competition on the buy side. Even I, like, when you write offers and you can write 30 offers for a client and not win the deal.
Yeah.
What do you feel has been your greatest strength in terms of navigating that part of the market?
Well, I think it's building trust with the clients, and they know that, you're going to pull them away from a deal if it doesn't make sense and the numbers don't make sense, regardless of what it sells for.
Yeah.
And I think that builds trust. And I would treat all my clients like I'm putting my family into this. And if I would do it myself, then I would have them do it. I'd be like, listen, like one house we just sold to a client. He's like, he was unsure because it came quickly. We got a good deal on it. But, I said, if you don't buy this house, this hits 9.5 out of 10 on that thing, I'm going to consider it. It's in my neighborhood. It's actually what we've been looking for. But I said, if you don't buy this house, I'm going to look at it. So and when I say that, I don't say that lightly because it's a house that like I've liked for a long time. But I said, when people say like, I trust my agent implicitly, like I want that to mean something. Like I'm going to pull you away if it doesn't make sense, but I'm going to tell you this is the house that you should be buying and this is the price we should be paying. Anything more than this doesn't make sense. And, when they see you pull them away from houses, they know you're not just there for the commission. And I think that's what's, people realize in this crazy thing on the buying side. On the listing side, how you present a home is important. And, a lot of agents maybe don't agree with me, but I think a lot do because I see a lot of them implementing the same things. But like I spend money in my listings, staging, cleaning, decluttering, painting. So like I'm in listings for 5 to 9, 10 grand sometimes. One I just hit 13. Like it was a little excessive, but it took longer to sell in this market. So like sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But at the same time, like I'm invested in these houses. And at the end of the day, like people know on that side, they're in it with me. They're not here for the commission check. I'm putting my money out at risk to sell your house, like, and making sure that it sells for top dollars. Like I can't change location. I can't change size of your house. I can't change structure of your house. But I can change how it presents inside with my people. So I think on one side, they're trusting me to pull them away from houses that don't make sense or deals that don't make sense. On the other side, they're trusting me because I'm invested in their house.
That's amazing to hear. And I so appreciate you. And you know what? The transparency is endearing. I'll be honest with you. When you're very transparent about real numbers, real math, not smoke and mirrors, that's really endearing. And I think what will happen is I think people will hear this and they're out of the air and they're thinking, no, Nirsh, I think I want to refer this guy because of the transparency. So I do appreciate it. Hearing the risk. Now, I think for a few years, there wasn't major risk, investing in the listing. But having said that, it's still money out of pocket. And then you look at the mindset, the attitude, the certainty emotionally around what you do. In my experience with the, say, top 5% of the industry, their mindset is killer. Like they're unwaverable. And so how does that play into your business? Like when you spend 13 grand on a listing, do you start getting nervous or like, how do you keep your mind in a very strong space?
Well, I look at the end goal and I know what's coming. So we've been through this cycle before. And like when I started in the industry, multiple offers wasn't a thing. So having to sell a house took time, 30, 60, 90, 120 days, constant feedback from clients, all that stuff. So if I know, like when I present a house, I've done everything possible to make that house sell. And the only thing that comes down to it is, at that point, is price from buyer feedback. So my mindset's pretty strong with all my listings, as long as the clients are on board and they're listening to me. The only time where my mindset would get affected is if the client's arguing with me on, this is what it is. I know the state of the market because I saw 2017. I saw what happened when the market came down and the non-confidence and everyone's sitting on the fence thinking the sky is falling. Right. So I know if I present a house this way, it's not something that I can change. So I know I'm confidently doing everything possible: digital marketing, staging, painting, print media, brochures, like everything possible. Like we have great videos and photography. So I know that it comes down to one thing: take the buyer feedback, and if you can address it, address it. If you can't, then it comes down to price. So I'm pretty strong knowing that when I'm going to go in and spend money, I can sell this listing, but there is a risk. But I look at it and say, if I can win 98 out of 100 times, I'm okay. So I can sustain a 5 or 10 grand loss if I have to. Right. Do I want to? Absolutely not. You want to win every time, but that's not normal to win every time. So it's built into the business that says, like, I want to spend X amount of dollar percentage, and usually I try to keep it at 15 to 20%. Sometimes you hit 25. Like that one that hit 13 was like, I don't know, 30. So am I going to make less money there? Yeah, I'm going to make less money. But at the same time, like, the house got sold, and it got sold for a decent price in the market that we're in. And it closes next month. But I know I did right by the client because, although we didn't agree on certain things, I did everything possible to sell their house, and the things I couldn't change, I couldn't change. So I keep my mindset strong, knowing that, I'm doing the right things by the client. And the great thing is I have great support, like great colleagues who have similar issues. So we talk about it. I have a great manager here, a broker owner, and, he's supportive of, us, and that helps. And when you're in a market like that we're in now, you need to have great colleagues around you as well, and have access to them, so that, whether it's Zoom or it's in person or just on a social matter, you can talk about what you guys are going through. And I find that helps keep my mindset strong. And I have lots of conversations with my wife, and, spending time with my kids too. That helps clear the mind of the BS. And, each year I'm trying to do a little bit more of that. And this summer, I just went away for 12 days with the family, and it was fantastic. And so that helps clear the mindset too, so I can come in strong for the clients.
That's great. It's great to hear. When you look at your daily method of operation, Nirsh, I think a lot of our listeners want to know what does a typical day look like in the life of, a top producer?
I'm up at about 5:30 every morning. The summer I was up about 6:30 or so because kids had camp. But in the summer, in the regular thing, like, I was up at 5:30 this morning. I had to use my alarm actually this morning. I'm, since COVID hit, I kind of work out at home a lot. I have a Peloton and some weights. So I go downstairs, I work out till about 6:37. Yeah. And then I come up, help get the kids out of bed, get going. My wife is there; she helps, and she gets them going. And then I have a shower, get ready. 7:30 to 8 with the kids downstairs, spending time with them before they go to school. Helping get my lunch ready. My wife's getting the kids' lunch ready, and just talking about their day and wishing them well. And then 8:10, my kids get dropped off at school. 9 times out of 10, it's from me. And my wife will pick them up because they end early. And then I go to the office. I'm at the office at 8:30 in the morning. And then at that point, I'm doing follow-up calls, or me and my assistants are going over, are going over the day and what needs to be done. But generally, 8:30 to about 11:30. Today's a difference because we're doing right. The Zoom call, but I'm doing like follow-up calls to agents. And actually, agents I try to do a little later because some agents I call at 8:30 and they're like sleeping. So for me, I start calling them after 10. Or if I'm going to do it, I text early in the morning after the day showing before to right. follow up and see where they're what their showing feedback is, so I can give to my clients because our clients want it. And then the afternoons is when I'll work on CMAs, or go to appointments, or work on some admin stuff with my assistant. And then if I don't have any appointments, I'm going home between about 4 and 6, and having dinner with the family. And then generally, if I'm booking appointments, I'm trying to book them outside of the 5 to 7 range. I'm booking them, 7:30 on, and they're going to meet clients. If not, I'm at home, doing the normal dad or things. Yeah.
It's good to hear. So listen. So some of the agents we communicate with, one of them had said to me, "Well, I don't want a job. I didn't do this for a job. Feels like a job to me." And I thought about this for a very, very, very long time. And to be very good, to be top of class, to have a standard that's higher than most, you do have to perform, and you have to do things that some people, of course, don't want to do. And here's an example of where you book time with your family, but then you also recognize in the real estate industry, you have to meet the consumer where the consumer's at.
Yeah.
And you got to go to if you got to see them, it's after dinner. And that does require late nights, right?
100%.
And does that also mean that throughout the course of your career, as you can tell, it's a really loaded question, but it's meant to convey a message. Through the course of your career, I'm assuming that you prospected daily.
100%.
And
100%.
that there were many days where you were frustrated.
Absolutely.
And there were many days where people rejected you. Like, I'm trying to get a point across here because I talk to agents all the time.
So my typical day when I started in the industry, from 8:30 to 9:30, like, it would be prospecting calls, like talk to my clients, follow up, whatever. But it would be like cold calling. I cold called for the first 3 years of my career and door knocked. Right. So, and I did deals from it. I have clients still to this day who are loyal to me from cold calling that I got. So, I would call, I try to hit 25 contacts a day, sometimes 50. And, when you're cold calling is probably the most monotonous thing ever. And, door knocking, at least you're out seeing people and you're walking on the streets. Cold calling is frustrating when you're getting rejected. No, not interested. No, not interested. Don't call me anymore. Take me off your list. You're the 15th agent to call. It is really tough. There's a lot of rejection there. And, that was just helped build my mindset, saying, okay, they just don't need me now, right? It's not personal. They just don't need an agent. They're not looking to sell their home. They're going to be here for another 20 years. And, so there was a grind that I did. So I would go cold call in the morning, and then sometimes I'd go door knocking if I didn't have anything in the afternoon. And, so like that grind has, now equated to clients who refer me. And now, obviously we have the social media aspect, which I got on a little later, but I got on social media when I got my license, but I didn't embrace it like my wife actually had told me to. And, there are some trailblazers who embraced it, and they've done really well. So I've used social media now, market updates, listings, and now I'm very comfortable with it, and I've used that to get business. So now I don't have to cold call or door knock anymore. And I have an assistant who's newly licensed. I'm going to take her out door knocking next week. And, but, she's like, why don't you go door knocking? I'm like, I don't want to. And that's really what it comes down to. Call me whatever, call me lazy or whatever. But I've built now that 80% of my business now is repeat and referral, or clients buying investment properties or stuff like that. And, that's a warm call is always better than a cold call, or a door knock. And, so once you build, then, take care of your clients and they'll take care of you. And that's where I feel I'm at in the stage of my career. So where now a lot of my business comes in as referral, or like referral from agents or referral from my clients.
Right. Is it fair to say that if you had not been very consistent in the grind for an extended period of time, years, you wouldn't have the business that you have today?
1,000%. And, there's a lot of sacrifice. There was a lot of nights I wasn't home. There was a lot of nights when my kids were very small. And unfortunately, my wife had to shoulder the load, and, she was working a job and she quit a couple of times because it was just too much for the family and maternity leave and stuff. And if I hadn't sacrificed at that point, like time with my kids and my wife, wouldn't have made where I'm at today. But there's also, you need to understand balance in building. Like, you need to figure out how to protect sometimes, because can I say I'm the best at that? No. And have I done the best job at it over the last 9 years? No. But I am learning, and it's every day, every year is a learning and how to think. And my kids are 7 and 10 now, so they grew up from being born to now in this industry, so they understand exactly what daddy does when he goes. But they're more vocal now too about me being gone when they're around.
Right.
And like, no, daddy, don't go. When are you coming home? Like, so I'm also now more picky about when I go out, and I schedule around what I want to schedule and when I want to go. And, so I can be with them as much as possible. But like, there's times where I'm just like, go, do what you need to do, go. So I have a very supportive wife, and, but at the end of the day, build, but don't forgo everything is what I'm trying to say. Like, find a happy medium that makes you happy, where you're making enough money and you've built enough of your brand and your business and your units you're doing. But never give up family, because family is number one. And if you don't have that, you can be the top producer, but at the same time, like, be unhappy, because you can have all the money in the bank, but be unhappy because you don't have a family life. And
I agree.
Not enough agents talk about that.
No, they don't. I mean, even when we moved up to Barrie, I mean, the first, 3 years, it was insane. We didn't know anyone. You're creating a circle of influence. So you had to run, and I ran hard, and it worked. And and I was lucky because I had a wife who was licensed. I got her license. I said, you need to be licensed. You can't do this alone. And so you're at home with the kids, and they need help. But but at the same time, if you don't have any business, you're going to be emotionally really stressed while you're at home.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're it sounds like you've been able to chunk your time now, where when I'm at home, I'm at home, but I also know when I'm not at home, I turn it back on. Yes. I think a lot of agents don't know how to turn it off when they're at home, right? To be fully present in the moment with family. But then when they step outside the door, they turn it back on. There's a skill set to be able to do that emotionally. Definitely an emotional level of maturity that has to be learned, I think.
Well, full truth is, like, I have trouble still turning it off, but sometimes just leaving my phone in another room, putting on do not disturb for a couple hours, not picking up the phone. And sometimes my kids or my wife will be like, someone's calling. I'm like, it can wait. Right. But I'm not perfect with it, and that's full disclosure. I'm getting better at it. But then, like, the minute I walk out that door and I'm on thing, it's business aspect. I was in a job for years. So, at the end of the day, you have to perform at your job. So I don't understand leaving to go to do work and not perform at a high level or at a mediocre rate. And at the end of the day, when I walk out that door, I'm like, all of the money comes, I mean, granted, government and brokerage take their cut, but all of the money is coming to my family. So if I perform at a high level, that money's coming home.
It's coming home. Right. So this mindset that you have around that, where did that come from? Like, I mean, some people, like, I've talked to broker owners and say, Rich, it can't be taught. I'm in disagreement with that. I believe mindset and performance can absolutely be taught. But some brokers say, no, Rich, it's either you have it or you don't. Where do you fall in that?
I think it's a good question. I think if you have a willingness to learn, it can be taught. But you have to be open to it. And if you're not open to it, then, and you're going to complain about, I'm not making this, I'm not making this, I'm not doing this. But then I see you on Instagram, posting nonsense. Like, you're not willing to learn or do what it takes to be in that 1% or 5% or 10%. Right. So I think it can be taught if you're willing to learn. And I think the majority of people are willing to learn. I don't think the majority of people want to sit and not be mediocre in their life or be mediocre in real estate. I think, it's one of those things where, do you want people to recognize that you've done a good job for them, or that, in anything, do you want to be proud of what you do? Or do you want to be like, I pushed some buttons and I did this and I get okay performance? I don't think anybody wants to be mediocre in their life. And I think they just don't know how, because they haven't had the right mentors or access to the skills that they need to learn.
Some of our clients, we say, listen, you acted and performed at a certain level over the past few years. In this next stage of the cycle, I don't personally believe you can act the same way and still maintain that level of production. I believe you have to elevate your standard and possibly think greater than the circumstance and do more than you maybe normally would have done when the real estate was a religion. And right now it's not so much of a religion.
That's a good it's a good question.
How do you, so sorry, as more saying, like, how are you going to act, day to day going forward if we continue a trend of, decreasing volume and increasing agent count in this market?
So increase in agent. Okay, so since I got my license, and now we've probably increased the amount of realtors by 25,000.
Right.
I would say there was probably about 40 to 45,000. Now we're at 70. I heard 5,000 dropped out. So I think we're at about 65, give or take. Right. Okay. So more agents got in the business during COVID because they're like, oh, I can make easy money. Look, these guys are selling a house, making 40 grand, 30 grand, 20 grand, whatever they're making. And I said, okay, I don't care about those people. So like, I don't care about agent count because the top 1%, 10%, I know what I do. I know what I offer. So it's kind of like that mindset within. Now, decreasing units. Yes, there's decreasing units available to sell, but remember something. No matter what market we're in, people got to buy and sell. COVID brought on a lot of divorces. I can tell you I did 12 divorces in the last 2 years, unfortunately. But that sparks units. People are selling, and if you give a good relationship with both of them, you might get a buy out of that. So you might get 3 deals out of it. So like there's potential for units to be there, and our average prices are all up. So even though I might have less units, I might have an average higher price, which means we have a higher commission. But at the same time, like I don't look at it. It's like how many families have I helped, whether it's a divorce, a size up, or whatever. Am I happy serving people? And I think you have to be like, I'm here to serve people. I'm not worried about what the competition is doing because I know what I provide. And as long as you're providing top-notch service, then I think they're going to be drawn to you, especially in this market. I can tell you in 2017, 2018, I did most amount of business. And then 2019, so actually 2017, I had my great year. 2018, I tried to start a team, didn't work out. So I was down a little bit, but then 2019, I had my best year. And then we talked in 2020, right when COVID hit, right? So 2019, I had my best year because I had the right mindset that I know what I'm delivering to people. I understand a changing market. I understand markets that are declining, but people need to sell. And if someone's in trouble financially, they're going to sell. Right. And, I think that's what people need to look at. People are like, okay, the housing market is coming down. No, everyone's sitting on the fence right now. They don't know what to do. Do I go up? Do I stay where I am? What am I doing? But there's some people bought a new house, need to sell. Some people, like I just saw one where the parents are 82. They left. They went to move in with their daughter in Chicago. They need to sell. They bought the house for 350, 35 years ago. I just sold it. I mean, we didn't get over 2 million like we should have, but we end up getting, I don't know, close to 1.9. They were happy. They didn't care about the money. They're in their 80s. $100,000 isn't going to do anything for them either way. So there's people who need to sell for other reasons. And, one of my clients was moving back to Winnipeg. So like, they bought a house so they need to move. So all of these people are still there and available. And, there's still going to be transactions. It's just a matter of what kind of value do you bring that you're going to be top of mind for the people, who are doing the less transactions, who in the number of less transactions, let's say in GTA, so that they call you and they call the top 1%, 5%, 10% of agents to do the transaction for them and help them get, top dollar in this market. Does that answer your question?
Completely. And it was kind of a loaded, but what I know about you, and I watch you on social media, I watch your mindset, aside from all the stuff you do, like if you didn't have the mindset, if you didn't have the belief, right? If you didn't have the belief that what you're doing is going to create, you wouldn't do the activity to create.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have the belief, like if you don't believe that, I watched a great thing you did on Instagram the other day about negative comments.
Oh, TikTok trolls.
And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant because it was honest. Yeah. And it was you addressing the elephant in the room. And, but if you didn't believe that your activity would produce, and if you didn't believe that you were serving people to the highest level, there is no way you would do the action.
100%. And that's the best way to say it. I know in my heart, I'm not a slimy realtor who's just there for the paycheck. But the guys who are coming at me on TikTok, and like there's a guy on Twitter, he's coming at me and he's going to get a response today. But like, you know, you want to come at me, but I'll also come out from behind the keyboard and I'll have an Instagram live with you and we'll talk. But if you're going to hide behind the keyboard, then I'm going to respond to you exactly like that. And, you know, I know that like I'm not just here for the paycheck. I know I'm doing right by my clients, and I know I spend thousands in my clients' listings to sell them. And from a buy perspective, if they're coming to me because they need a change in their life, they need a bigger house, they need that, it's their choice. Can I predict the market? No. But at the same time, I can follow trends and I can tell you, here's what I see, right? And also say, if you're buying and selling in the same market, it's relative, you know, but like, honestly, with inflation where it is, your money sitting in a bank isn't doing anything. Put it in an investment tool, whatever. Okay, so you put it in the stock market. Where's the stock market right now? Stock market is down. I see my mutual fund accounts. They're down. So at the end of the day, like, I always look at it and I tell people, okay, a house is part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if anybody knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm sure you do, because you're shaking your head. So you know it, but shelter is always something somebody's going to need. So whether it's for your family or whether it's for an investment, it's probably the safest thing that's going to go up and down over time, but it's going to always go up. And you can say that about the stock market, but look at the stock market. It's a piece of paper. Do people need the piece of paper? They say, "Oh, you know, you're speculating in the housing market. Investors are speculating, but they're doing the same thing with stocks. You're speculating on the company's performance. Yep. But the difference is somebody needs that house to live in, whether it's renting or whether it's buying. They need that house. So when we look at it, I know, like, I'm not just trying to get a commission. I'm trying to tell people this is what's happening in the market. I'm not here for a paycheck. I've told people, don't buy now, wait. Yeah. I've told other people, this is what you need. This is 9.5 out of 10 on your thing. Don't worry about the short-term fluctuations. Like, you got to think about it like long-term, especially with real estate. You got to think about long-term. But I know I'm not doing it for a paycheck. Do I get paid if somebody buys and sells? Sure. But I'm also at the point where I've told 3 or 4 buyers, don't buy. In the category that you want to buy, wait, I need to see what's going on with the market. I need to see what's going on with the interest rates, which is happening right now, I think.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying not to look at my phone. I'm very curious.
Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, I mean, you can look at your phone if you want to, and then we can have a discussion about it. But at the same time, I'm of the mindset that I'm doing things from my heart, and I want my kids to be proud. And my daughter's on TikTok, so she sees what I'm doing. She's like, Daddy, those people are very negative and they're not nice. But I know I'm doing from my heart, setting a good example for my kids. And I would never fleece somebody for money for a commission check. So I know that I'm going to go home and I can hold my head up high in front of my kids. So I can take on these TikTok trolls or Instagram trolls or wherever they are, to your point, because I'm speaking the truth. And I know from my heart that I'm not doing anything wrong. And these people have something wrong in their life or negative, or they want to blame somebody else. And the realtors are the easiest people to call scumbags and not honest and this, that, and the other. And, you know, at the end of the day, you want to come for me, it's fine. But you better be able to debate me with facts. And if you can't, then go away. And that's why people are loving it, and our industry is loving it. You know how many comments I get? You see them on Instagram. How many comments I get about it? Like, people are like, "Thank you for saying something." I get tons of DMs about it.
Yeah, and I think you know what I have come to understand, just in the world of performance. Oh, by the way, it's 75 basis points.
Great, thanks.
What I've come to understand is that in anything in life, we're all playing in the same ecosystem. Okay. And inside that ecosystem, I get to create. So if one person is creating and I'm not, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the problem. And you can't blame other people for the results that you're currently maybe not having in your life. If somebody's producing by doing something in a certain way and you're not, well, there's a common denominator there, and that's you. You're not performing or you're not thinking the correct way to do something in a great way. And when I look at people who are producing in the real estate game, it's a very challenging business. You gotta create relationships, you gotta create brands, you gotta put deals together, you gotta deal with emotional craziness, right? Not only from your clients, but their agents, right? Yep. And then the public as a whole. It is one of the most unique markets and businesses on the face of the earth. And this is why, why I'm still here, why I'm in the world of real estate, because it is so unique and so very few people do it really well. And I'm following you and watching you, you're a true professional, and you definitely put your money where your mouth is. And I really do believe you hold yourself to a very high standard with your clients. So we do appreciate you spending some time here. You touched real briefly, and I know we're starting to go a little bit over time, and I know people can only listen as long as their butt lasts, but you mentioned something about trying to start a team. And for a new agent today, would you say join a team, or would you still go off on your own and build something on your own?
Okay. For a new agent who's not me, I would say join a team. It depends. Okay, so you know how you said, we just had the conversation of, can you teach mindset? Can you teach like that? I think like I've always had the drive to succeed. No matter what I was in, I've had a drive to succeed. If that's not in you and you feel it right away, then you need a mentor. And I would say join a team. Like if I were to go out to, let's say, California, or I don't know anybody or whatever, I would join a team. I would join a high performing team. Some of my favorites are like the Altman brothers or whatever, but like I would join a high performing team. But I have a very strong mindset that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to brand, and I'm going to be big. So for me, I was of the mindset that like today, if I got in the business again, I would still do it myself. Now, but again, 1%, 5%, 10% of the industry, it's already inherent. The other 10 to 30% you could probably teach. And then there's 50% that don't want to do it. So those are the people you really need to join a team, so they can feed you leads, or they can feed you, mentorship, or they can feed you whatever. But there's things that you don't know in the business, and you only know them from learning from your manager, who's not going to be available 100% of the time to you, or you learn from your team lead. And at the end of the day, like learning, you have to have a place to learn, because it becomes a very lonely place. I've always had a coach, except for 1 year in my business. So I learned from my coach. I learned from other agents that are in the coaching programs I was in. And I'm still learning from them. And so to answer your question, to a new agent, if you have the drive and the discipline, do it yourself. If you need help and mentorship, join a team.
I think it's great advice. We have two questions we ask people when we start working with them. We ask them these two questions. Can you do the thing that you say you want to do? 99.999% of the time, you can. Okay? If we look at theology, we look at science, you go to those two places for answers to that question, we've proven that most people can. But the last question we ask is, are you willing? Are you willing? And you mentioned it, right? I just wrote it down. You mentioned willingness. Are you willing to do whatever it takes on this side of the law, within the legal and ethical means, to do whatever is necessary to make it? Very, very few people can answer that question honestly. I get a lot of, yes, I'm willing. Right. Very few people after 6, 8, 9 months prove to me that they were willing to do whatever it took.
You know why that is, Rich? Because too many people are comfortable, and they have either another source of income, or they don't have the mentality of, I don't go out and hunt, I don't eat. And when I got into business, I had a wife on maternity leave. Yeah. I had a daughter who was on formula, who's a premature. A daughter who was on formula, and diapers. You know how expensive that is. You have 3. Yeah. It wasn't cheap. And whatever government gives you on EI is crap. And so I had 2 car payments to make and a mortgage. So it was, I don't make money, I don't provide for my family. but people don't have that starving mentality because they're either in a very comfortable life, they're paying a certain amount of rent, or they're living with family, or like living at home still, and they're young. They don't have to, for lack of a better word, suffer, or have the thing of I can't put food on the table, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay my car payment, I can't put gas in the car. And until people have that mentality, or they feel the strain, they won't be like, okay, I can't pay the bills this month. What's going to happen to me? And I had that mentality, and I think most of the top performers have that mentality of, okay, I need X, Y, and Z for my family, or I want X, Y, and Z for my enjoyment, and this is what I got to do to do it. There's sacrifice you got to take, like doing whatever it takes. Is not just words. They say it 99%. Yeah, I'll do it. But 8-9 months later, they're not doing it. Why? We'll look at their outside factors and what they're doing. If they can go to the gym at 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m., what are you doing in your day, and how is your day structured that you can, perform at a high level? And part of it is like, prospecting 9 to 12. Like, I mean, that's my schedule. It doesn't work for everybody, but at the same time, like,
I'll be honest with you though, Nirsh, I talk to a lot of agents, and we have some really large producers, in your class who are coming on, who've agreed to come on, and who are sharing a little bit their daily method of operation. And I'll be honest with you, most have a very structured day, very structured in terms of their performance, because they've created a habitual behavior and emotional behavior. So to operate in, which allows them to operate subconsciously through the day. They don't even think anymore. They're just doing now. They're just doing. They don't even think about it. They just do. And there's some magic inside there. So
prior to real estate, everybody had a job. And you had to be there between a certain amount of time, and you had certain functions to do. So how is it that you get into this industry and you're working for yourself and you don't think that you have to do anything, and you don't have to operate on a schedule? That mindset to me doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. So you know what it doesn't. And I've fallen prey to that too. You make a ton of money and then you get a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. I messed up, and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. What I've learned is that when you operate on purpose with a goal-driven attitude, on purpose for something bigger than what you are today, you always got to think bigger than your current past. Because if not, you just live in the past. And so people like you, we need to hear more of you. We need to hear why you do what you do, how you do it. And I implore everyone to watch Nirsh on social media. Learn from this guy. Take what he's doing, mimic it, rip it off, but do it in your own way with your own voice.
Can I tell you something? I've shared a lot of times like what I do, and somebody learned, like, you're sharing all this stuff, or like somebody like, you're going to share your listing presentation. I'm like, yeah, because nobody's me. Right. I'm not going up against the same clients, and even if I am, I can speak to my listing presentation better, even if it's a carbon copy of it. 100%. And then the other part is they say only 5% of the people might actually do what you give them. So you can give them your playbook, and they may not do it. So what am I worried about there? Like, again, you're right. Rip off whatever I do. Like, show, do videos, do day to the day, do what I'm doing. And you'll see it'll happen. But the question is, again, are you in for it? And will you do what it takes? Because this is what it's going to take.
100%. And there's an energetic thing that I believe in, by the way, and that's how we've lived our life, is that you will attract your own tribe. You will attract, on an energetic level, people who are vibing with you and who are very much like you, right? And who you are being that day. So you can't take anyone else's business. You can't steal it. You can only create your own. And if you do the things and act in a very certain way, you can produce and create whatever it is you choose to. Because this is one of the very few industries that there isn't a glass ceiling anymore. Like, you can still produce based on your own efforts. So I appreciate you. We've gone way over time. I feel like we could have did a 3-hour marathon, but because you have such a pedigree of experience, you've been through the game, you've been through the pain, and you're still here and you're surviving and thriving. And so we appreciate you. How can people reach out to you if they need to talk to you?
Phone number is 416-726-3384. My Instagram handle is NIRSH_ARUL_Remax. And Facebook, I'm on there as Nirsh Arul, and I have a business page, Nirsh Arulnayagam. But just Google me, you'll find me, and it's easy to
to find you.
I get DMs from agents all the time, and half my following, I would say half, I have about 6,600 followers on Instagram, and I'd probably say 2,000 of them are agents. And keeping a good relationship, and just my final thing, with the agent community is very important. I mean, like, look, you and I are colleagues, and you reach out to me, and we connect, and if I'm looking for somebody in Barrie and the surrounding, it's you. So these are things that, like, connect with people. Like, it's making relationship with agents, but it's making relationship with your customers. All of that, like, will come together for you and help you in business as well.
100%. Appreciate you very much, Nirsh. Wish you the best this September and the rest of the year. And thank you very much for sharing some of your time with us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on again, and looking forward to the next time we speak.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you've heard and you're interested in creating a quantum leap in your real estate business, here's what I want you to do next. Head over to www.theunstoppableagentprogram.com and book an appointment to speak with our team. We'll get on a Zoom call with you for about 30 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, what do you really want out of your life and your business? Number 2, what is not working for you today? And number 3, the exact mindset strategy you should be using to create massive change in these areas. Remember, creating massive, consistent results in your real estate business does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen. We're helping clients all over the world create peak results in their real estate business. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.theunstoppableagentprogram.com. We'll chat soon.